Hello everyone, today we are going to start a new season of GTNH. Unlike the previous seasons, we are not going to ditch the quest book but we are going to follow it more strictly. The first thing we are asked to do is gather some dirt, which we can use to hide ourselves if we can't get to bed in time for the first night. But that won't be an issue since we managed to locate an abandoned building to shelter us. And there we also found a bed that will allow us to get some rest before moving on the next task. Getting some wood and some gravel. While wood is everywhere, finding gravel is a little bit trickier. The easiest way is probably to just look for a river and check on its bed. One thing you'll probably notice is that, unlike vanilla Minecraft, you won't be getting flint out of it. To obtain flint, you have to smash together 3 blocks of gravel. And that was also another quest. With that flint, we can now craft a rather expensive crafting table and a chest. Flint is also going to be the material for our first tools. Now that we have the basic equipment, we can start our journey of the self-imposed challenge of completing every quest. To do that, we had to adventure through all sorts of biomes. We crossed dry biomes to find quicksands. We crossed a lake to find a magical forest, the only place where a rare blue 3 grows. Finally, after crossing a canyon, we managed to find a rare forest of bamboo for our last quest. Once we go back home, we can brew a nice cup of tea before getting into the next chapter of quests, Tier 0. This is the Stone Age level, so we have to start by doing some heavy work. And after gathering enough materials, we can craft enough bricks for a coke oven. We will momentarily build it under the floor, so that we can easily fuel the furnaces that will polish the stone for our house. Meanwhile, we also built a small workshop where we can craft better tools. It is composed of 3 tables. The first 2 will allow us to create patterns and parts for the new tools. We can use all kind of easy-to-mold materials. The last table is the one we use to assemble the parts into new tools. Now that we have a new pickaxe, it is time to go mining. But we won't go in caves or random holes like in normal Minecraft. In this mod pack, ores spawn in huge clusters, located in a grid pattern. That means we just have to dig at the center of the grid cells to find clusters of minerals. And in this location we found oil sands, which we don't really need at the moment. So we move on to the next one, and after some digging, we found limonite, an iron-rich mineral. But it looks like our flint pickaxe can't break it. Luckily, our quest book traded us an iron pickaxe head for some cobblestone. We can use a tool station to repair and upgrade our pickaxe with the newly acquired part. And with that, we can finally collect iron. The other nice feature of our new pickaxe is that, the more we use it, the more it will level up. This will give modifier slots, which will allow us to add some enchanting material to our tools. For example, we can add some lapis lazuli to our pickaxe to increase the amount of ores it harvests. One other useful modifier is redstone, which will increase the working speed of our tools. Next we built a smeltery, which is a variable size structure which allow us to melt metals and cast parts for our tools. But tools made like that are just for the basic world interactions. To craft more advanced equipment we need some more refined tools. There are a lot of those, but we can start just with the basic ones. And with those, we can now work iron in all sorts of components. In case you are wondering what for, consider that doors are held together with screws. We can now craft many new things. We can start with a new lunchbox, which will hold 6 different foods, helping us cycle our diet. We can upgrade our crafting table in a crafting station, which will access nearby chests and hold items when closed. We can also upgrade our chests using metals, increasing the storage capacity. And by using a lot of cotton and leather, we also managed to craft some backpacks. With all of that new equipment, we can slowly work our way into harvesting a whole tree of the nearby forest. Another great tool of this age is the ore finder wand. To use it, we insert a sample of something we want to find. Then we just keep walking around until the wand starts to react. As you can see, you can even find diamonds just by searching for coal, and that's because there is always some coal around diamonds. The only thing left to do to complete this chapter is bronze. To do so, we collect some copper and some tin. We grind those two materials into dust, and we mix everything up together. With that, we have acquired bronze and we can move on to the next chapter, Steam Age. As the name suggests, here we are going to work with some steam machinery. As the name suggests, we are going to work with steam machinery, starting from a small bronze boiler to get our first steam. We pipe that into a steam alloy smelter, which will allow us to do some more advanced metals, such as red alloy. And that material is part of the complicated piston recipe. With pistons, we can finally get to the useful machinery, starting from a macerator, which main feature is doubling the amount of materials we get when working raw ores. Since it doesn't get damaged when used, it can also spare our mortars. Finally, it can also recycle stuff we find in dungeons. Talking of which, there are a lot of things we can collect or find in the various structures laying around the world. And the best material you can find is steel. And, by managing to collect 8 ingots, we can get some huge quality of life improvements. We use the first ingot to upgrade our pickaxe to steel, which can dig obsidian. We mix that with some steel and some aluminium to obtain alumite, which we mold into large plates so that we can upgrade our tool station into tool forge. This upgrade will allow us to craft the most powerful and expensive tools, such as the lumber axe, which can chop down a whole tree in a single hit. Or the hammer, which is like 9 pickaxes. With all of that stuff, we can now build heavier machinery such as the forge hammer, which will allow us to get cheaper metal plates. However, that great improvement came with a huge cost. A lot of steam. Now, there are many more ways of producing steam, but all of them have some heating times that won't play nicely with our consumption spikes. To fix those problems, we made a huge buffer, a huge giant tank that can hold a lot of pressurized steam. And by also getting a new boiler, we can now power some bigger machines. We start with a steam grinder, which is like a macerator, but works 10 times faster while being twice as power efficient. Next we have the compressor multi-block. Finally and most importantly, we have the steam presser, which does forge hammering. Building the structure of those machines takes quite some materials, but we can reduce the costs by having some of the parts being shared by different machines. However, running all of those at once is going to take a lot of steam, and the issue is not our steam production, but how quickly we can convey it to the machines. That means we need better pipes for our steam. For that upgrade, we can increase the size and use better materials. Since we got in the basement, we also build a steam-powered water pump, which will extract enough water to power the best steam generator in the game, the high-pressure solar boiler. Now that energy is no longer an issue, we can start working on our next major project, a bricked blast furnace. We start by shredding some bricks and some clay. We mix the so obtained dusts to obtain a refractory compound, fire clay. We press that material into bricks with our steam compressor, then we heat blast those bricks. And after mixing up some concrete, we have the building blocks for our upcoming blast furnace. The only issue left is to decide where to build it. And I mention that as an issue because that machine is going to make pollution. I mean, a single blast furnace isn't going to be much of a big deal, but we will want to build more than one and we will want to cut on the building cost. And once we had multiple of those running for a couple of hours, we can start to see and feel the effects of pollution. Anyways, now that we have managed to obtain steel, there are many things we can do with it. But first things first. Now that we have steel and flint, we can visit the Nether. This place is filled with nasty creatures, but it's the only place where we can find sulfur, which we needed to process rubber. Meanwhile we can use some steel to make a couple of molds, like the plate one to work rubber into sheets. With those we can craft piston boots, which will make moving around way easier. And at the cost of a single steel ring, we can also get a better backpack to carry around all of our tools. But the most useful thing we can craft with some more steel is a charcoal pile igniter. To use it, we first have to dig a huge hole with some bricks on the bottom. We fill that hole with logs. And after covering all of the wood with dirt, we put our new machinery on top of it. And it was then that something weird happened. A wild giant brick warrior appeared. Maybe we have touched too much grass and this is the quest book telling us to go touch bricks. And the first thing we can do with those bronze-plated bricks is a multi-block steam alloy smelter. Since that thing will eat a lot of steam, we start by using it to produce a new alloy we only dreamed of, stronze. Sturdy as steel and malleable as bronze. This materials is indeed great both for pipes and for tools. We can also use the extra space in our new machine to alloy some clay compound. That is the only material enough lightweight and sturdy to make our new hydraulic parts. But, of course, the first thing we have to do is break many tools in order to work the dozens of stacks of metal ingots required to make some hydraulic motors. With those new hydraulic parts, we can craft a carpenter, which will allow us to do more advanced stuff with wood, such as plating it. And with plated wood, we can make a woodcutter. And that machine doesn't just cut wood, it also grows it. With the power of steam. After building it, we set it up to cultivate cactus, which we can use to feed our new maximum-sized boiler. With all of that steam, we can now power some bigger machinery. The first one is going to be the steam conformer, which is an improved version of the forge hammer which allow for hammering stuff into various shapes, making it more versatile than a forge hammer but not as efficient as an extruder. Next we build a steam blender. That mixer will allow us to mix the malleability of bronze with the sturdiness of steel, making breel. Which must not be confused with stronze. And by using both of those materials, we can build a better blast furnace. But this one works in a slight different way. After feeding it materials, it will turn on but it won't work. That is because it will turn steam input into time progress. So we add a steam input pipe and now we can see how nicely it works with just a small steel pipe worth of steam. It works so nicely that it quickly used up all of our carbon fuel. To fix that, we rooted some cactus into the new infernal coke oven. This will make cactus charcoal, which we then pass again inside another infernal coke oven to make cactus coke, which we can now feed to our blast furnace. Those two can also keep up with our boiler, and they didn't even reach their final speed yet. But if we want to make steel even faster, we can use a hotter kind of steam. We can achieve that by fusing normal steam with creosote oil, making superheated steam. We pump that into our blast furnace and now we can make instant steel. With all of that steel we can build an extractinator. Then we also built some extra machines to support it. It all starts from a steam cobbler, which will make cobblestone from lava-water interaction. Cobblestone is then smashed down into gravel. Next it is mixed to water, forming a sluice which is finally fed to our extractinator. Here, with the power of superheated steam, we can extract all sorts of goodies out of watered stone. Next we filter those goodies and work the best stuff into ingots. And thus, with a couple more of machines, we have an unlimited source of bronze, iron and steel. Which we bring right into our base. However, as you'd probably expect, we quickly run out of steam. Luckily, by extractinating obsidian sluice we can obtain silver. And I think we all know where this is going. Into our new mega pressure solar boiler. As you can see, it is happily boiling 100,000 liters of steam per second. With all of that steam we can now work on crafting a steam manufacturer. That took quite a lot of resources and many crafting steps, but we managed to complete it. Since once again we tried to optimize space, we can admire it in all of its glory from the NEI preview. The first usage we have for this machine is crafting steel turbines. With those, we can upgrade our pumps to fluid regulators, which will allow us to control the flow of a jet of steam in air, thus allowing us to pipelessly connect our machines. This will also allow us to use the whole universe as our steam tank, giving us all the room for buffering energy we could possibly need. Now that we have upgraded our main machines with that new solution, we can also start looking for an even more fused kind of steam, supercritical steam. The easiest way to obtain it would be to add more creosote into our already superheated steam. A cheaper way is to boil water using lava, but that requires a compact hyperpressure reactor, which isn't too easy to craft. The only option left is to offer our compressed cactus coke to the cacti gods in the cacti pantheon. So we collect the leftover cactus we have been stocking, compress those a couple of times, and then bring that expensive block of super compressed cactus to the new shrine we just built. Now the cacti deities will reward us with a lot of supercritical steam. With that acquired, we can move on to the next task, making a new machine. And this one doesn't really look like something we can craft by hand. So we start working on making more stuff passively. So, after making some mess to passively produce all the basic materials, we make some more mess to passively make all kinds of plates. And it was then that we run into an issue. If we don't want to automate a crafting table with a good stock of tools, we need a couple of assemblers, and those are annoying and expensive. But since there is no other reliable way, we start mass producing every kind of part we can. Then, after manually crafting our first assembler, we set up some hydraulic regulators to keep it stocked with the materials needed for our super compressor. And after enough time, we managed to get everything we needed. We fill our inventory with that stuff and we proceed into building the new machine. And after realizing our inventory is small and we do not like walking, we take the whole drawer with us. And after completing the main structure, adding buses, hatches and pipeless power, we turn it on to compress steam into solid form. This new material will allow us to craft the most advanced technology we could only dream of in gaseous steam age. For example, we can make screws so lightweight that we'll be able to lift up not only a couple of gold rings, but also the people attached to those rings. Now we can also access the Jetstream wireless hatches and build some new giant mega blocks. But what we really are after is the more advanced hydraulic Jetstream enchanted technology. However, those parts require some peculiar gems and rubber. So we quickly grab the material to craft some more automation and automate the passive production for those things too. And after building some more spaghetti automation, we managed to obtain our gems. As for the rubber, we automated it all the way up to passive fluid regulators. With that, we can easily craft some of the advanced hydraulics parts. But, before using those, we shall pay a tribute of a quintuple compressed cactus coke to the cacti deities so that the supercritical steam charm will light our path. And the next thing on our path is the infinite creation given by the perfect steam progenitor. At first that looks like a challenging thing to build, but thanks to our out-of-control passive restocking, we already have most of the parts required ready. And, after crafting a bunch of extra parts, we are finally ready to assemble the machine of our dreams, and there it is, in all of its glory. But that was just one more step towards our final destination. And crafting the ultimate machine requires quite a bunch of materials. Without getting too scared, we start working towards a bigger ore processing plant. And while all of that stuff is being passively crafted, we can work on something powerful enough to keep up with the demands of our ultimate construction. A steamed Schrödinger cat that will act both as a spinning device and a multi-dimensional linking device at once. And while crafting it took almost no time at all, finding its favorite food, anti-money, took basically forever. Next, after spending a lot of time alternating between idling and looking around, we managed to craft the last part of the machine of our dreams. And with that, we have completed our steam tier interdimensional teleportation device. But the real reward here is the alien technology that will allow us to dig caves way faster than we could ever imagine.